Coming soon, this September, the Hearthstone community will be adjusting to significant changes to some of the most powerful cards in the game. Innervate, Spreading Plague, Hex, Fiery War Axe, and Murloc Warleader. The Innervate nerf is clearly addressing community concerns with the current game state. The Druid class has dominated the latter in a tier of its own since the Frozen Throne release, which has led to plenty of speculation about the role of Innervate. At times, every archetype of Druid comprised of nearly 60% of the meta. Some believed that a nerf to Innervate was inevitable. Changing Innervate from giving a player 2 mana crystals to 1 is going to shake things up for both the Druid class and the game as a whole. Aggro Druid will no longer be casting a turn 1 Vicious Fledgling or a turn 3 Bittertide Hydra. Jade and other slower Druid archetypes will have to work harder to access Ultimate Infestation. Mana ramp has always been at the core of the class's general strategy, fueling many historic combos and overwhelming board states. So this change will have a greater impact on players who've been around long enough to remember turn 1 Yeti. Though the extent to which this nerf will change the game is hard to predict, players will certainly feel less pressure from Druid once the update is live. Ramp Druid decks will have to rely more on drawing and investing into mana growth, while aggro and mid-range Druid lists will need to gain more value from their minions before dropping their larger threats. What was once the core card of every deck in the class will likely take on a more supplementary role. This may pave the way for Kazakus Priest to take center stage for the meta to evolve around, but we will continue to see Jade, Ramp, and Aggro Druid as they make appearances on the latter. Spreading Plague will also be seeing a change, going from 5 to 6 mana. What was originally intended as a defensive card has become a powerfully efficient staple in ramp-style decks. This change won't impact the card's value as a tool against decks that rely on wide board states. However, that additional cost of mana, along with the Innervate nerf, gives Token Shaman, Murloc Paladin, and similar decks one more turn to prepare a response to Spreading Plague. We will expect to see Token Shaman make more of an appearance on the ladder in response to this change. We may also see the return of Druid of the Claw, now that the 5 mana slot in Druid decks will be less contested. Shaman is also taking a hit from this patch with the mana increase of Hex. Many players were dependent on Shaman as an anti-control class in the early days of Hearthstone, due to its ability to repopulate the board and efficiently remove large threats. This change to Hex won't affect the state of the meta as much as the other card updates, as players rely more on Shaman's board flooding ability over its removal. However, exploring other mid-range and control archetypes of the class will become more difficult. Polymorph has only recently seen some reintroduction in Control Mage in the past week, and even then, in an archetype that has seen much success in the past 2 expansions. There may be a resurgence of Spirit Echo Shaman or slower Evolved Shaman builds as players test the Hex nerf for themselves. After 3 years of being one of the most efficient cards in the game, we must say goodbye to Fiery War Axe as we know it. The 2 to 3 mana cost shift for the weapon is drastic, having served in both aggro and controlled warrior archetypes as a flexible 2 mana staple since the beginning of Hearthstone. In the current meta state, this will slow down the damage output of Pirate Warrior significantly, giving more breathing room for control and mid-range decks. We will also see Deadman Warrior and other experimental archetypes go through another phase of reinvention now that Forge of Souls has lost 2 of its standard targets. The days of Fiery Wind Axe will soon be history, joining the ranks of Warsong Commander and Charge, and making Warrior the class which has been nerfed the most to date. Finally, Murloc Warleader will only be buffing the attack of other Murlocs by 2, and will no longer apply a +1 health buff after the patch. Murloc decks have served a unique place in Hearthstone's history as one of the first tribal archetypes in the game. The combination of board resilience and damage output have made mid-range Murloc Paladin one of the best decks to contest Jade Druid in the first month of the Frozen Throne meta. Now we will have to rely on Cold Light Seer and Sunkeeper Tarim to make their board states more resilient to common board clears, such as Primordial Drake, Blizzard, and Consecrate. The necessity of mid-range Murloc Paladin will drop in response to the Druid nerfs. This leaves 2 possible outcomes for the future of the deck. The latter may see this archetype continue to function as a mid-range option on the backs of Spike Ridge Steed and Bone Mare, or shift to a more aggressive role now that the archetype will have to rely on damage output over board resilience. Though the patch will change the latter experience, and the competitive space pro players are exploring in their preparations for the Hearthstone World Championship, we won't be seeing the greatest impact of the patch until the next expansion is revealed. With changes to non-meta basic cards like Hex being made, Blizzard could be making room for new directions that will bolster class identities and alter the Hearthstone experience in even greater ways than the patch itself. Until then, the community will experience its second meta shift in the past month once the patch goes live, hopefully leading competitive Hearthstone to greener pastures. or away from them, as it were. We hope you enjoyed this quick glance on the possible impact of the coming nerfs in the September balance patch. We invite you to join the conversation and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this segment, please leave us a like or favorite, and subscribe to stay tuned to all of Tempo Storm's news and Hearthstone content.